Aliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark fuel Indiana Fever rally to beat Atlanta Dream in OT. Indianapolis, the Indiana Fever got back into the win column Sunday afternoon, rallying for an overtime win over the Atlanta Dream, 104-100. The Fever are now 19-17, number 6 in the WNBA standings, with 4 games left in the regular season. I'm proud of us. How Fever flipped script on Dream for comeback OT win. Devastating Caitlin Clark on Angel Reese's season-ending wrist injury. You'd never believe the Fever were down by 16 at one point during the second half. After fighting back to tie the score in the fourth quarter, Indiana successfully defended Atlanta's final shot in regulation by Aliyah Gray, forcing the first overtime of the season for the Fever. After trading baskets for most of overtime, Indiana finally took a lead with 1.5 minutes left on an Aliyah Boston hook shot. Indiana then successfully defended shots from Rhyne Howard, who had 36 points, and Tina Charles 17 points, and 2 free throws from Caitlin Clark sealed the game. This victory gives Indiana a 4-0 record over Atlanta this season, giving the Fever their second sweep of the season. Phoenix Mercury, 3-0. Indiana couldn't really get into a rhythm in the first half, and that could have come from their struggle to take care of the ball. Indiana turned the ball over 12 times in the first half, 5 in the first quarter and 7 in the second. Some came from small mistakes, including when Clark tried to throw the ball over her head to Nalissa Smith in the paint, and the Dream grabbed it out of the air. Coach Christie sides called multiple timeouts in the second quarter as the Fever were struggling, including 2 within 40 seconds of each other. Kelsey Mitchell turned the ball over twice in a row following a timeout around the 6-minute mark of the second quarter, leading sides to call one. That second timeout helped both Mitchell and the rest of the Fever. Mitchell did not turn the ball over for the rest of the second quarter and had just 2 more turnovers the rest of the game. Luckily for the Fever, the Dream failed to capitalize on most of the Fever's turnovers. Atlanta only scored 7 points off of the Fever's 12 turnovers in the first half, leaving most of those free possessions scoreless. In the second half, Indiana had just 3 turnovers. The beginning of the third quarter was not a stretch. Indiana wanted to remember some defensive miscues gave Atlanta an 8-0 run, extending its lead to 12 points. At one point, the Fever trailed by as many as 16 in the third. It was similar to the Fever's third quarter letdown on Friday night, where Minnesota used a 29-point third quarter in an 11-point victory over the Fever. Indiana couldn't recover in that quarter, letting Minnesota outscore them by 17. But this time, the Fever didn't let that run linger. Indiana went on an 11-0 run itself in the middle of the third quarter, forcing 3 turnovers by Atlanta in that span. Mitchell and Aliyah Boston each accounted for 4 points in that span. For Mitchell, it was her first points since the first quarter. The Fever's run rejuvenated the Fever crowd, which was sitting mostly silent for the first part of that third quarter stretch. A 3-pointer by Clark at the end of the quarter got the fans off their feet. Clark scored 26 points, including 2 crucial free throws in overtime, on 7 of 17 shooting. She added on 12 assists and 5 rebounds.